of this are that it includes the whole supply chain, so it's very comprehensive. And it's quick but thorough. You saw how easy that was to do. Just put in 200 bucks, bam. The cons are, you saw that the data set was from 1997. So that's because, like I said, this data set they're using is enormous. Every company in the whole country. So it takes them like, it's only every 5 years to release it. They're supposed to come out with the 2002 one kind of soon. But I mean, it's out of date because it's such a big project. But then again, it makes up for the fact that it's got such huge breadth. The product relevance is a big thing too. You saw that I had to just pick, electronics manufacturing to kind of represent iPod. And that kind of, sort of, sometimes you can nail it right on the head for some types of stuff. Like they have tire manufacturing, they have certain things really specifically nailed down. So again, the relevance can be a big issue. And there's no differentiation between products. Like, I don't know who made this guy, but so this is a Dell. There's no way to distinguish between a Dell laptop and whatever. Is that a Dell laptop too? Or Sony? There's no way to tell between a Dell laptop and IBM. They're the same thing in this model. So, and the other big issue with this is that it does not take into account imports at all. So if this thing was made in China, right, or say the person who made the bottle, got the iron or the aluminum ore and the paint and made the bottle, say they bought all their stuff from overseas, say from China. The model basically just pretends like it's all done in the US. So for imports like that, it's not very useful. Because the US has a efficient economy and stuff, or we have higher tech, I should say, you can probably count on it as a lower bound for emissions. Stuff is, they use more coal in China, et cetera, and it doesn't take into account shipping either. So those are kind of the pros and the benefits of EIO LCA. So that's it. Do you guys have any questions about this?
So I have a question about like the example with the iPod, the unit value, because how do you take the $200?
So you asked about the tool here.
Right, because you could have, I guess you could have a laptop that's say $200. Say the iPod is $500, $400. You have a laptop that's $400. But that's how do you take the retail value that, and then find out the unit value of energy input to build that device? It could be that the iPod is smaller and it's much less, resource hog than maybe a Dell laptop, but their unit value is the same.
And that's where the issue of relevance comes in. I mean, the numbers you get out of this thing, you can't just say, oh, my iPod, 59 kilograms, that's the end of the story. That's by no means, this gives you sort of a range or a bracket, about 59 kilograms, maybe that's realistically something between 1 and 100, maybe good, certainly good to an order of magnitude. And that's way better than not knowing anything, or way better than having to spend a year and $1 million trying to get the actual detailed numbers of an iPod. So, it's good for rough, but rough and quick, it's actually quite good, especially since it takes into account the whole supply chain. But you're right, there's all kinds of issues with pricing. Really here, this is for a 1997 model, so you have to sort of backtrack for inflation and all kinds of stuff. So.
What department put that together?
So the emissions were done by Carnegie Mellon, and then the economic input output, I think it was the Department of Commerce. I'm not exactly sure. It's the same way they calculate the GDP. It's the same matrix. And you can also find out economic activity. So you can see $200 of your iPod generates, well, $0 million. But you put in $1 million worth of iPod orders, for example, that generates $2.3 million of activity in the economy. So that's how they calculate those types of numbers as well.
So the companies are required to release these data or not? Yeah. So it's a law, it's a governmental law.
Let me talk about that real quick. There's certain chemicals companies are required to report. That's not where these things are come from. These are compiled by Carnegie Mellon University. I'm sure they get some of their numbers from companies, but there's some stuff companies do have to report, like toxic chemicals, lead, etc. They don't have to report their carbon emissions, at least not yet. Just today, the EPA had a proposed rule to have all industry report their CO2 emissions, which is actually really big news. But at this moment, that's not where, certainly not where you get this, they estimate the CO2 emissions from, because no one has to report that right now.
Because I would just assume that these companies, they have, let's say, a lot of this output, they're not likely to release these data.
And there's some that are required to by law.